You never see a bank truck following a funeral reception going to the funeral home. So understanding is money isn't your last objective, is having that full understanding that money should be a vehicle. And I always say is money should be a vehicle towards freedom, and understanding what freedom is to you individually. So when I look at success, I always say is I'm trying to build as much wealth as possible that is going to allow me to have as much freedom as possible to do the things I love consistently every single day, and spend as much time with my loved ones as I possibly can every single day. So that is my vision of success, is being able to have as much financial freedom as I possibly could.
In today's ultra-competitive business world, being a successful entrepreneur or business owner can be very challenging. Fortunately, contemporary times have blessed us with resources for tackling those challenges and getting us to success more quickly than we could have imagined. Welcome to The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan, a podcast that explores how the world's most powerful entrepreneurs grow incredible companies. This podcast looks at the 5 keys to unlocking success as an entrepreneur. A successful educator turned entrepreneur, Jason's mission is to use his gifts of teaching and leadership to help others get the results they want out of life. Join Jason every week and learn the keys to grow a truly successful business.
So today's episode is sponsored by Results University. Now, you as an entrepreneur, you're interested in entrepreneur things. Maybe you haven't started yet. Maybe you're in the early process of starting, but I've got something that I think you need to take a look at. Go to resultsuniversity.org/root, as in root of all success, for a special offer where you can get the complete startup guide for entrepreneurs. It's everything you need to know to go from startup to success in 6 months or less. It's everything. It's 11 lessons that you're going to take you from everything from how to file your LLC paperwork, how to write your vision statement, how to make sure you choose the right team members, how to hire people, how to do partnership agreements, everything you need to know to get off the ground to go from startup to success in 6 months or less. Plus, you get a bonus lesson called Why People Buy. It's a sales 101 that you need to put into your organization the day that you start. So go to resultsuniversity.org/root for this special offer. Thank you to Results University for sponsoring today's episode. Hey there, I'm the real Jason Duncan. Thank you for joining me. As you can see, I'm coming to you from my home office. This is the Root of All Success podcast studio right here in Gallatin, Tennessee, just north of Nashville. Going to be having a great guest on the show today, and we're doing it by Zoom because he's in a completely different country. Today's guest is the proud father of 2, a husband and an entrepreneur for the past 25 years. He's founded numerous companies and built them from concept all the way to 7- and 8-figure corporations. And included in these are True Blue Homes, a portfolio of vacation rentals in Ontario, northern parts of Ontario and Canada. Kimura Wear, it's a boxing and martial arts equipment company that he started in the basement of his house in 2006. And he currently hosts a top-rated entrepreneur podcast called Jeff Knows Inc. And over the past 4 years, he's coached countless entrepreneurs in balancing the obstacles between fatherhood and entrepreneurship and achieving a high level of success in both of those areas. I was actually a guest on his show not too long ago. As a fitness leadership college graduate, a certified NLP Master and life coach, and as a best-selling author, Jeff has taken his experience to create Man's Purpose, which is the fastest growing community of entrepreneur dads on the planet. And that's why I think I like him so much. Joining us today from Ontario, Canada, please join me in welcoming the great, the one and only Jeff Lopes to the Root of All Success.
This is a pleasure. I'm so happy to be here, Jason. I mean, we always have great conversations when we talk. This is going to be a fun conversation today. So I'm really looking forward to this one.
Well, me too. And I want to say to you, thank you publicly, because somehow Instagram is so phenomenal, right? I have made so many real relationships with strangers like you through Instagram. I don't know how we got connected. I don't know what happened, but I put out a call on Instagram, I don't know, several months ago and said, hey, I'm looking for very successful entrepreneurs to be on my show, The Root of All Success. And somehow you and I started talking about that. And you said, hey, I'm in Canada. Do you do these by Zoom? And I'm like, no, I only do these live and in person in Nashville. And you pushed back a little bit. You didn't know me. You're like, hey, man, you really should be doing doing Zoom. So I want to thank you for pushing me, because this is the very first Zoom episode of The Root of All Success. And that's thanks to you, because you said you ought to do it. And I'm like, no. And then I went back to my marketing company and I'm like, there's this guy in Canada who has a really great podcast who's telling me I should do these by Zoom. What do you think? And they're like, yeah, you got to do them by Zoom. So thank you, man. I appreciate you pushing me.
You're more than welcome. You would get there sooner or later, because it's kind of where the podcast world has evolved in the last 12 months, right?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, though, I love, this is going to be a fantastic conversation, and I love your background, where I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but I really enjoy sitting across the table or across chairs with people too. That's always fun. So if you do come to Nashville, you've got to come see me. We won't do the podcast again probably, but we can sit and hang out and have a Coke together or whatever, and just chill. So tell me about, because I love you got Oprah, Muhammad Ali, you got Albert Einstein, Steve Jobs, and is that Mick Jagger? Who's that?
It's Mick Jagger.
That's the one outlier.
We got Bruce Lee, we got Martin Luther King, and we got the whole wall comes around. It goes all the way around the office.
So tell us the story behind that.
You know what? I'm a strong believer in indirect mentoring. What I mean by that is, a lot of people have direct mentors. I'm a strong believer in indirect mentors. What I mean is, you could learn a ton by studying people's patterns or people's lives or people's lifestyles, whether it's through a book, whether it's through a podcast, whether it's through history. And these are just people in different industries that had an impact in my life. I mean, Oprah was something, when I grew up, my mom was always watching the show, so I was brought around that. Einstein, I mean, even in our bathroom in our head office, I got a huge poster of Einstein. So you're sitting on the John and you're looking at Einstein. Muhammad Ali, I mean, my business come over, boxing, Steve Jobs, I got an Apple iPhone. They're all people that had some influence in my life. Mick Jagger, music, Bruce Lee, martial arts. They're all things and individuals that have an impact in how I was kind of brought up. And I thought it was giving homage to these incredible legends and leaders in our world, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's I love the phrase indirect mentors, and I want you to spend a moment, if you don't mind,
100%.
Talk to the listeners, because listeners who listen to my show are entrepreneurs or wantrepreneurs. Like they think they want to start something, or they have already started something, and some are super successful, many times greater than you and me both combined. Like there's some amazing people who listen to this show. But for the people out there that want to know, oh, I've never thought about this concept of indirect mentors. Maybe they can't hire, Oprah to coach them, or somebody to do that, or Tony Robbins or something. Tell us a little bit about that, because this indirect mentor concept, because I love the concept.
Yeah, there's two ways I look about it. I mean, one is finding somebody. If you're about to start a business, you're about to get into an industry, find the most successful people in that industry. Find the most successful people that have already created a product similar to what you're trying to do, or a business similar to what you want to do. Study what they've done. You never have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of people start a business and they spend years and years trying to reinvent the wheel, thinking they want to have that magic success. When it comes to business, you never have to reinvent the wheel. Just find somebody that's created this perfect wheel in the industry that you want, and just modify it to your own specifications, right? So I'm a strong believer in that method of studying who and where you want to go. But I also believe in, when I talk about indirect mentoring, I mean, a lot of people don't have the money, especially just with life, starting a business, family. They might not have the money to spend on a mentor or coach. And I'm a strong believer in mentoring and coaching. But you know what? A simple book. You could pay $20 for a book, spend 2 weeks or a week of your life, and literally learn all the lessons that individual has learned over a 20-year period in 2 weeks, and literally for the cost of $20-25 for the book. So simply grabbing a book, listening to a podcast like ours, or vice versa, studying something that's successful could literally speed up your business success years and years, and literally cause you to not make dumb mistakes that you would make by simply just reading somebody else's mistakes and learning from their past.
I love that. And I really think, for the entrepreneur sitting in his car right now who's thinking, can't afford a coach. I don't really know where to go to find advice. First of all, you're doing the right thing by listening to this show, and to listen to shows like Jeff Knows Inc. Like, you should listen to his show as well. But there's plenty of places to get indirect mentorship through people like Jeff and like me, who have developed multi-million-dollar companies, who've gone through the failures and the mistakes to lead to success. And you can shortcut that by having these indirect mentors. Now, that doesn't take the place of a person-to-person relationship that I think that Jeff would probably also say you should have. But I think this indirect mentorship is a great concept. And I'm glad you brought that up. And if nobody's capitalizing on that concept, indirect mentorship, I think maybe you ought to do that. If you don't, I might do it. But well, tell me and tell the listeners how you started out as an entrepreneur, because in the intro, I talked about how you've built multiple 7- and 8-figure companies. You've got several things going on right now. I love Man's Purpose, what you got going on with dads and all that thing. But how did you get started as an entrepreneur?
I mean, I've always had the hustle drive. I mean, I could think of as a kid, my dad would drive me to, I was always into sports cards. And my dad would drive me at 12, 13 years old to a sports card memorabilia show on a weekend with like $20 in my pocket to buy some cards. I'd hustle back and forth to dealers, and I would leave with $100 in my pocket. And that would be my spending money for the week. And I would be the only kid of all my friends, like the shooter, with $100 in his pocket. And I would do that on a weekly basis. And it's always that hustle. Then when I was 17, I actually started my first company. I'll give you a quick little Coles note on it. Me and my friends would go to a mall after after school, we'd go to a hangout in a mall, and a couple of friends worked in a couple of shops. So we used to always talk to the store managers of little clothes shops in a very small little mall. And they would always complain that after school from 3 to 7, kids are coming in and stealing. And I was like, there's got to be a way to fix that. And it just popped in my head. I mean, like, just loss prevention, like just put some kid at the front with a security jacket. That's going to just prevent something from that store. They're going to go to the next store to steal. And I went to my dad and said, listen, Pops, I have this idea. My dad's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to try this. He gave me $250. I registered a sole proprietorship business. I got some business cards. I bought 4 or 5 security jackets, a few walkies for $250. And I went to store trying to sell this vision. And all of a sudden I got 1 shop, and then I got 2 shops. I ended up having 7 shops, and they were back then paying me, this is, oh my God, 28 years ago, they were paying me $13.50, and I was turning around paying my friends minimum wage back then was like $6 an hour. And I hired all my buddies from high school, and I would literally from 3 to 7 o'clock put them outside this shop with a security jacket, and it was effective. And it went on for about almost a year, but it got to the point where my friends would not show up for their shifts. And guess what? I would have to be there, or friends of ours, or friends of the family. Like, I would just literally, and my parents got to the point where like, you're there every single night now working. And they put all this pressure on me, like, you got to finish high school. I'm like, ended up selling the company. Until this day, the company was called Strictly Security Services. Until this day, the gentleman that bought the company off me for $2,500. So I mean, in a year, I turned $250 to $2,500. He still runs that business. And I paid my dad back, and I put that money aside. So that was my first taste of being an entrepreneur. And be honest, since then I've never worked for anybody. 19 is when I really started. I was going to college, and I started my first fitness consulting business in 19.
So that is a story I had not heard before, and that is phenomenal. So entrepreneur listening to the show, you have 0 excuses for not getting started. I mean, you got Jeff as a teenage kid going and recognizing a problem, solving the problem, and then arbitraging the labor between his friends and what he was getting paid. That's a great story. But that's just the beginning of your story, Jeff. I mean, you've been extremely successful in so many other ways and done more than $2,500, right? I mean, you've done a lot more than that. So what was your next big venture as an entrepreneur?
I mean, from there, I dove into, I had a passion for the fitness industry. And at 19, I drove into a company called Millennium Bodies, and it was in the fitness industry. I was doing consulting for gyms. I was actually implying personal training systems. Back then, they weren't very valid into big box gyms. So I did that for a few years. I had 6 trainers that were doing in-home training. So I would go get a contract for in-house training, 30, 40 sessions. I would subcontract a trainer out, make my separate rate, make the difference, and set them off there. And I did that for a few years till I exited that company. And then from there, I had a sports memorabilia business. I had an event company. I've had a gym. So I've had different ventures. And in 2016 is when I once again thought I was starting a company to build and exit, because I love doing that. And that's when Comora started. And fast forward January 2021. It's 15 years later. We still have this company, and it's still going strong. And it's we design, manufacture martial art and boxing equipment. So that's my main company. And the reason I kept that company is it's been essentially my bread and butter to every other venture I've done. It's done so well that it's allowed me to really, really dive into other businesses.
So Kimura Wear, am I saying that right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So Kimura Wear is for boxing and martial arts. So there are people out there right now who are listening to the show that's one of their things. They like to do that for fun or for fitness. So how would they get in touch with you to check out your equipment?
Yeah, just the website, Kimuraware, KIMURAWEAR.com, kimuraware.com. I mean, that's just the easiest way to get to it, or via social media. But that, it's 15 years going strong, and a huge, I would say, what has been amazing in that company is how we've pivoted. We started off with an online business, then we went directly to wholesale. From wholesale, we went to licensing. We went to customization. So now we're a full license customization. We do a brand new gym starts. We do full from start to end equipment, bags, pads, flooring. So we do the full out gym. And then for licensing, we do full licensing agreement to franchises and stuff like that. So it's opened up the doors to so many different opportunities, right?
Yeah. So you're doing, I'm going to guess, a little more than $2,500 annually in revenue.
We're doing okay with this company.
Well, I actually have a couple of clients right now, coaching clients of mine who own gyms. Here in the Nashville area. So now that I know a little bit more about your story and about the Kimura Wear, I'm gonna do a connection. So I'm actually gonna make myself a note. So I'm gonna make sure intro Jeff to these clients, because I think that there may be a way, because I like to connect good people, and I think that's part of the secret of success for entrepreneurs is always be looking to make good connections, not just be a taker. And so I know that you've done good things for me. I want to do good things for you. It's the law of reciprocity, the law of fair exchange. I think we want to exchange those things. So Kimura Wear is your biggest thing, but I love the fact that you are doing Man's Purpose and then Entrepreneur Dads. I love that actually, I think that's the thing that caught my attention the most. I even said this in the intro, is that the thing that I admire about you is that your commitment to this entrepreneur dad thing, about balancing this life as a dad and as an entrepreneur, because let's face it, entrepreneurs that's a tough lifestyle. That's a tough thing to do. I mean, you and I both have this history of entrepreneurship where we've started businesses, sold businesses, exited businesses, sometimes failed in business, but that can seriously affect your kids and your family life in a negative way if you're not protecting against it. So tell us a little bit about how that started in you and why you're doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean, you could really go back to almost 12, 13 years ago. I mean, when I was your typical, and I think we talked about this prior, like I was your typical entrepreneur. Like I was literally working crazy hours, never home. I had a 1.5-year-old daughter. My wife was pregnant at the time. And it was a Friday afternoon, and my wife, and I'll give you a little Cole's note of what happened, but my wife got rushed to hospital, and we almost lost my wife and my son at the same night. And I was pulled in a room, and the doctors looked at us and said, your son's got about 5 or 10 minutes left of life. He was 31 weeks into pregnancy. And they'd like, do you have a name for his birth certificate? And we didn't even have a name back then. And I just picked Tiago because I knew that name meant God's warrior. And I just wrote that on the birth certificate. And that's when his journey began. And for the next 4 months, and we're very blessed, we have one of the greatest hospitals in the world for pediatric care in Toronto, Canada, called Sick Kids Hospital. And that became the home of my son and a second home for us. And that became my main purpose. I always believe you could have tons of different purposes, and we'll talk about that later. But that became my main purpose in 2008 of April, to get my son out of the hospital. And my son at that point had, the doctors found 6 organs that are severely damaged. His brain was severely damaged. And we almost lost him 4 or 5 times in that process. And when I finally was able to twist the doctor's hand to discharge him, they didn't want to discharge him yet. He was 4 months old, still a little under 4.5 pounds, still on feeding tubes, never swallowed in his life. And we forced the doctors to discharge him because I was like, I need to be a dad. I need to take my son home. And we took him home with this little 1-ounce bottle, and we had to teach him how to swallow. He never swallowed in his life, and he would just have his reflex and throw up every day. But when he was discharged, the doctors handed us these discharge papers, and they diagnosed and quote unquote labeled him with cerebral palsy. And they said he would be confined to a wheelchair his whole life. And when we got home, me and my wife looked at ourselves, and even though we had another child, we felt like we didn't know what we were doing. And I remember we went to bed, and the next morning I woke up and I looked at my wife and I said, my biggest fear is waking up, being 6 years old, and looking at my son and realize I didn't do everything I possibly could, or didn't give him every single opportunity I possibly could to give him the best advantage possible to overcome his difficulties and his challenges. And that's when my journey started. And I became more present as a parent. I was spending 3-4 hours a day at home with him. I started studying parenthood. I started studying fatherhood, and he became my. We set so many goals, and every single goal was a huge milestone, a huge moment as a family. I mean, simple something. When he was 6 months old and he laughed for the first time, my daughter dropped something in the kitchen floor. That was like, we all cried. When he was 1.5 years old, when he first balanced and stood up, that was a huge victory for us. And we went on, and after, God, so much work with my son, I was able to get him to start stepping and moving his legs. And I convinced the doctors to try AFOs, which are braces. And with tons of work, we got him into balance and be able to start walking with braces. And the braces were past his knees, and they said he would be in braces at least till he was 19, 20. And we set a goal, and I said, by your 12th birthday, you're gonna be able to your damn braces. And prior to your 13th birthday, we're gonna run a marathon. And we put all these signs in his bedroom, and we put all these goals, and everything was a goal. Like, it took 3 months to jump on one leg. It took months to be able to curl all your toes. It was just all these steps, and it was hard work. And this kid just pushed and pushed and pushed. And prior to his 12th birthday, he was out of his braces, and his birthday is April 19. So April 19 of 2000. Oh, I know 2021, April 19 was his 13th birthday, and April 18th, we ran our first marathon together. And
That's
it's been this crazy, incredible journey. And it's been just this, like, I wouldn't change anything. Everything he's been through, it's made me so much stronger as a dad. A lot of people tell me that my son was born to be my son because I'm so driven. I'm so, like, when I put something in my head, I'm telling you, Jason, I don't care what it is, it's getting done. I've always been like that. And everybody's like, he was meant to be your son to be able to get through this. And I always tell everybody it's the opposite. I mean, I was meant to be his dad because the lessons I've learned, the man I've become, the more patient, the more caring, the more understanding, the more of a family man. It's all because of my son. So it's been this incredible journey. And through the process, I've really learned how to manage my time, how to build memories as a dad. And fast forward 13 years or 12 years, I started the podcast, and I was doing the podcast. I started talking to these young entrepreneurs, and they all had the same story. It seemed like every single successful entrepreneur had this revenge story on their dad. They're like, oh, my dad, I had to prove him wrong. I had to prove my dad I could do this. And they'd always turn at the end of the podcast, Jeff, why are you so successful? Like, what's your revenge story to your dad? I'm like, I had this incredible relationship with my dad. My dad was this amazing human. And it just realized that there was a lot of, and once I started studying entrepreneurs and dads, I realized there was, and I know a lot of people hate the word balance, but there was a lot of unbalancing there. Yeah. There wasn't priority. There were missing moments these dads were missing moments. They're not figuring out their schedule, not understanding how to build memories with their family, not knowing when they're home, they think they're present, but they weren't present. Knowing how to turn off the phone, how to do activities with their kids, how to build memories, not about presence, about building memories. And I started studying this all, and I said, there's got to be a better way. And I thought, how much more of an opportunity this is than just building a community of entrepreneurial dads that everybody could join together and talk and grow and learn together. And that was my vision with Man's Purpose, was building a community that dads, no one's perfect, I'm learning every day, you're learning every day, is how we could all come together and just learn and grow together and build. And then I could add as much value as possible through all my years as an entrepreneur, all my years as a dad, everything we've been through, and add value to everybody as well. So that's kind of long story how this all began.
Well, and I can tell you that from following you on Instagram and watching what you're doing, I see that this is not just talk. I mean, it's obviously it's a big part of who you are. Yeah. I saw you take your son out for a drive in your truck in the parking lot, and I saw your daughter. Like, I see you guys doing things together, and I know that means a lot to you. And I would think that for entrepreneurs who are listening, who are family, who are fathers or mothers, that please pay attention to what Jeff is saying, because as an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, if you build a successful company and you build this wonderfully big exit, you have financial freedom for the rest of your life. If your kids are wanting revenge against you, then what's that worth? I mean, I think Jesus said, what's it worth if a man trades his own soul for the world? Like that's not a fair trade. So I think that we need to make sure that we pay attention to that. And I'm really glad there are entrepreneurs out there who are preaching and teaching and living out this concept of this balance between as an entrepreneur and your relationship as a dad to your kids or a mother to your kids, that type of thing. I want to ask you now, what is because this is called the root of all success. And on this show, I talk to super successful people just like you all the time. I get the pleasure of sitting across the table, or as it were, across the internet with somebody like you. And we're talking about their tremendous success. You've had success as a dad and as a husband. And we just talked about that. You've had tremendous success as an entrepreneur. But what I want to find out is what you believe success means. So what does success mean in your own words?
I believe there's so many layers of success, and at your level and your understanding of success alters and changes as you get older. And my vision of success when I was 20 years old was just driving a beautiful car and having this massive house. Once I got married, my vision of success was having a family and kids. It always alters. At my age now, in my 40s, my vision of success is literally living every day to the fullest. Living every single day without regrets. And that could be towards my business, that could be towards my family, but I want to be able to have that impact in the lives of everyone around me, that they have a full understanding of I'm always there for them. So having that understanding that I'm always there for all my kids, my wife, my mom, my sister, my family, and taking that family-wise when it comes to success as a business is trying to impact as many people as you can, whether it's through, like I said, with Comoreware, whether it's through Man's Purpose, whether it's through my True Blue Homes company as well. It's understanding that we're here for a very, very short time. And this has been very evident in my life in the last little while. So with this time is how many lives you're going to impact, how many lives are you going to be able to serve and change? And through the process, what are you doing with your success? I mean, you got to build all the success and money, all the money in the world. Are you giving back? Are you serving others? Or what are you doing with this money? What are you doing with this success? I mean, there's the bank. You never see a bank truck following a funeral reception going to the funeral home. So understanding is money isn't your last objective. Is having that full understanding that money should be a vehicle. And I always say is money should be a vehicle towards freedom. And understanding what freedom is to you individually. So when I look at success, I always say is I'm trying to build as much wealth as possible that is going to allow me to have as much freedom as possible to do the things I love consistently every single day and spend as much time with my loved ones as I possibly can every single day. So that is my vision of success, is being able to have as much financial freedom as I possibly could.
I love that. And I was leading a Zoom call recently, and I had, I don't know, it was 30 some odd people. There are 4 different countries represented. And it was a phenomenal call. And I was talking about the way people make money. And there's this thing called the law of the straight line. And I don't have time to get into it. It's not the purpose of the show, but one of the ways we talked about doing that is that your money has to make money. Like that's the thing. Like you could trade your time for money, you could trade other people's time for money, or your money could make money. And that's really the 3 ways. And the elite among us, they have figured out that third way better than everybody else. And the fastest way to create generational wealth, which is something I'm aiming for, and it sounds like you're aiming for the same thing, is to figure out how to get money to make money, because money never takes a day off. Money never gets sick. Money never gets COVID. Money never dies. Money goes 100% of the time, works while you sleep. But I had somebody ask a question on that call, and I want to pose it to you too. Yeah. They asked this question. They said, well, they pose it this way. They said, okay, first of all, I'm asking you this question, Jeff, because of what you just said success was. So that I want to put it in context. But they asked this question. They said, well, Jason, I am, I'm fairly comfortable. Like I make good money. I don't understand why I need to continue to push for more money. Like, why would I want generational wealth? Why? Like, I've got enough. Why do I need to push for more? Now, I know what I said because I said it, but what do you think? What's the answer to that question? Because I know some entrepreneurs that are sitting here listening to the show right now, whether they're walking their dog, they're running on the treadmill, they're thinking to themselves, well, that's great. It's just another two guys that want to be rich. I don't think that's what you said, but what would you answer to that person?
I mean, there's two layers to that. I'm going to bring it back to one little quick story after for the second one. But the first is, the more you have, the more you'll be able to serve and give.
Amen.
And for anybody that says, I always hear that stories, and I actually heard Ed Millett say this once, and somebody says, what's the difference from 20 billion to 100 billion dollars? And he says that 80 billion dollars is going to impact so many more lives in this world. I have that understanding that you have a purpose. If you have a gift as an entrepreneur to be able to succeed and grow and build businesses that bring passive income or wealth, you're not only serving yourself, your family, but you're giving back to charities, you're giving back to other people, you're serving people, you're helping other entrepreneurs build their own wealth as a mentor, as a coach. You're just giving back. The more you have, the more you're able to impact more lives. And there's somebody had this thing that asked me the other day too, is how and why would you even say that? And this actually came to my understanding even for my family, because when my son was born, we didn't know his future. And that really impacted how I understood passive income and wealth, because I looked at my business like, you know what, Comora is doing extremely well. I got a couple of other companies that are doing extremely well. But you know what, if something were to happen to me today, these companies could fall apart in 3-4 months. What do I leave for my kids? And that's when I really started 9 years ago with True Blue Homes. And True Blue Homes is now impacted up to 9 properties of vacation and commercial rentals, because I realized having a set real estate, a set piece of income that was bringing me passive income on a regular basis, that if I'm gone, that general wealth or that generational wealth is always going to be there for my kids.
Yeah.
So looking at your business and for individuals that are listening, looking at your business and thinking, you know what, you're doing extremely well. But if something were to happen to you today, how long would that well last?
Yeah.
Would your kids be able to live off that? Would your family be able to live off that? Look at your business. If you walk away from your business for a month, and this is something you talk about and something you teach, if you want to walk away from your business for a month, will it be able to still run the same way? And these are all things entrepreneurs have to look at when you're talking about having wealth that are going to create financial freedom. Are you going to be able to step away from your business and still see the business grow and maintain itself? Are you going to be able to take off to another country and your properties are still bringing passive income, or one of your business still bringing passive income? You're still paying your bills. You're still going on. These are all things that you have to look at as a business. And then, like, back to the reality of it is, the more money you make, the more you're going to be able to impact and help so many other people.
I love it. And I appreciate your perspective. I agree with your perspective. That doesn't make it right, but I do agree with it. And I think that if entrepreneurs really would think through this, that if they disagree with what you just said, then there's a bad money story in their brain. Like, they've got this corrupted story about what money is. And money isn't, like, I heard this a long time ago. I don't know who said this. You probably heard the same thing. Nobody wants to be a millionaire. They want to live the life of a millionaire. They want the things that come with it. But that's greed. That's just saying, I want the life of a millionaire. That's developed from a greedy perspective. But if you say, hey, I want to create generational wealth because I can make an impact, that difference between 20 billion and 100 billion, that's 80 billion people that can be served in a completely different way than would have been had you stopped. And I always use this example, and I wonder if you like this example, is that if you take a family, take you and your wife and your 2 kids, right? And I have a wife and 2 kids as well. We both have this family of wife and a son and a daughter. We both of us have that in common. We're both in our 40s. But if we just said, hey, you know what? I only want to make enough money for me. My wife and kids, they're on their own. Like, they got to figure it out. We'd consider that selfish. But then if we back up, take a step back and say, well, what if that same guy said, I only want to make enough money for me and my wife, my kids are on their own? You would also agree, selfish. But then back up another step. What if the guy said, I only want to make enough money for me and my family, just the four of us? Most people, if that were the only option, would go, okay, yeah, that's reasonable. No, it's also selfish, because there are other people in your community and in this world that need help, that if you can create the opportunity through wealth creation to serve them, well water, in Africa, or clean drinking water in India, or affordable housing in the slums of United States, right? Those are things that we can do only if we have wealth to be able to do it. It doesn't happen because we're just good people. It happens because we've created wealth and financial opportunities to do it. So thank you for that perspective. And I hope that entrepreneurs will take that to heart. Now, my next question for you, Jeff, is this. With that in mind, do you consider yourself a successful person?
Yeah, I mean, you're always striving to be better. I mean, that's, I think, the biggest thing with a true entrepreneur. You're never satisfied. The minute you become satisfied, you become complacent. The minute you become complacent, people start surpassing you and getting ahead of you in every single category you're trying to. So as a dad, as a husband, as a son, as a brother, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly trying to up your game. You're trying to elevate your game. You're trying to level up your game. And I think that's just natural. We have this conversation all the time, and this is conversation I think that tons of people talk about on a regular basis. Are you born an entrepreneur? Or you teach them and be taught to be an entrepreneur? I'm a strong believer that you could teach somebody all the skills, the tools to get them there, but that hustle, you're born with it. And if you're born with that gift of being that, having that drive, that hustle, whether you become a pro athlete, whether you become a successful entrepreneur, whether you become the top surgeon, whether you become the top, it doesn't matter what field or industry you're in. If you have that hustle, you're not satisfied till you're at the top. And even when you get to the top, you want to even still get even higher and higher. You're always trying to climb. And I think that is one thing about me is I'm a successful. If you look at me on a numbers and overall, if I sit back and look at my life, my family, like I live a great life. Like I try to live with no regrets. I spend as much time with my family, my parents. I spent tons of time with my dad, but I just recently lost my dad. Even though I spent tons of time with I was still calm. At 40, in my 40s, I would call my dad 2-3 times a day. I still had regrets when he was gone. So what that has taught me is you always could do more. You always could be better. And success is in the eye of the beholder, right? You have to always want to be better at everything you do. And that goes, like I said, being a dad, being a husband, being everything around that.
Yeah, I love that. And I sense your pain in that of the losing of your dad. My dad's still with me, and I am very grateful that I have that relationship with him. And I think that what you said there at the end of your comments, like success is in the eye of the beholder. If you, the dictionary definition of success is that it's a goal achieved. So if you set a goal and you achieve that, that by definition is successful. So for you or me or the entrepreneur listening, if a goal is I want to create $1 million income for my or revenue for my business. Well, when you create that $1 million revenue, you're successful. Now, I don't care what people think, even if you're still driving a 1982 Honda Accord like that, you're successful. It doesn't matter what it looks like. You have achieved a level of success. So for entrepreneurs listening, I would encourage them to really consider what success means. It's not just the pictures you see in the Rob report. It's just not what you see on Instagram, fake lives. It's actually, what do you want? And success grows. I know that for you, when you're a kid, you started that security guard business. For you, success was like, holy crap, I'm making, what the difference between that was like $6 or $7 an hour, and I don't have to be there. I'm successful. Like it doesn't matter. But then it was like, wait a minute, I can do better than this. I'll start this company and I'll start this company. I think all of us as entrepreneurs, we look up and we go, wow, I'm successful. It's not one day you hit a goal and you're done. It's like it grows over time and it continues to evolve. One of the things that I teach in my kind of my signature content is called the 5 P's of success. And it starts with passion, being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, preparation, and plan. And we talked a little bit about each of those already, unbeknownst to you. And if the listeners have listened a lot to the show, they know that that's kind of what I'm looking for as we have this conversation. But you use the word hustle and I use the word passion. And I think they mean the same thing, because most people think that passion is just emotional excitement about something, where you're passionate about, you're passionate about cars. Like you have I think you said a 79 Camaro. That's kind of your baby, which like, I'm a motorcycle guy, probably more than cars, but just because you're passionate about something emotionally doesn't mean you're going to succeed. You talk about it in terms of hustle. And that's really what passion means. It means willing to endure, willing to suffer. And I can see in your story that you had that willingness. And your son, and you said his name, but I didn't catch it. What is his name?
Tiago.
Is it Tiago?
Yeah.
So for Tiago, part of your willingness to endure and suffer and all the business that you created is for him, right? Yeah. Am I seeing that right? That's your passion. That's your hustle.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, there's different levels of that. I mean, like I said, through True Blue Homes, it's through both my children, and what I did with the real estate is everything I would buy in two. So if I bought a studio condo, I would buy two. If I buy a 2-floor loft vacation home, I would always buy two. So everything I bought is two. And the 9 is the odd number because the last property I bought was 2 pieces of land I combined together to build we're building right now a 16-acre cabin retreat. So I've combined them, but everything has been in 2 for both my children. And that is, and if you look even myself, my journey over the last little while, I've, for the first time in my life, started branding myself, which I never branded myself before. And it's been about roughly around a 13, 14-month journey of branding myself. And through the process, there's a long-term goal for that. And what I'm doing is I got myself on stage a few times. I got the podcast, we got the book. I've been a guest on, got over 70 podcasts, and I've been published. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm trying to build myself as a brand. And the reason I'm trying to build myself as a brand, Jason, is when my son gets to a certain age, we have tons of goals by the time he turns 18, from marathons to as a lefty pitcher throwing a baseball. We have certain goals we want him to achieve. And the reason we're doing this all is because when he's turned 17, 18, I'm hoping I've built such a platform for myself that my son could just kind of transition and step on stage, because I think his story is going to be able to impact millions and millions of people around the world. So I'm trying to build myself as this brand that allow my son an easy transition into the platform, into kind of the spotlight when he's ready to get in there. And be honest, he's 13, and we practice public speaking all the time already. And I'm kind of preparing him because I know this is going to be a huge part of his future.
That's great, man. So your son, your daughter, your wife, they're part of your passion, your willingness to endure, because that's actually what the word passion means. And that you use the word hustle, it's kind of the same thing, this perseverance, passion, hustle. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, you can't succeed without that. That's key number one. The second key I talk about is being at the right place at the right time. And I think for you, based on the story that I just heard you tell, right place, right time for you was at that mall. When you went into that store and had that conversation with that shop owner, like, hey, we're losing stuff between 3 and 7 because these idiot kids are coming here and stealing stuff. Right place, right time. That led to one success to another. And I think for entrepreneurs, they need to understand that you've got to put yourself in the right place. You can't just sit around and wait for it. Luck comes to those who work hard. It doesn't come to those who sit at home and play video games. You got to work hard. You got to get out there in different places. Do you agree with that concept?
100%. The more you put yourself out there, the more opportunities will come. And you have to understand, as entrepreneurs, everybody is going to have those downtimes, and everybody's going to have those challenges. Everybody's going to go through those mental moments where they think the world is against them. And when it comes to being an entrepreneur, I always say is you have a ton of losses, but as long as you have a little bit more wins along the way, you're on the right track. So don't look at those losses. And you always hear this all the time, Jason, is look at those losses. They're not losses, they're lessons. Take those lessons, learn from those lessons, try not to make them again, and then focus on the wins and stack up the wins, because everything is a journey. I mean, when I look at myself and I think of the last 26 years, I mean, we've had so many great moments, but we've had down moments too. But the journey has been so incredible. The ride has been so incredible. And look at the long-term journey, because a lot of people start a business and 3 months later, they're not making the money they're not as popular, or they don't have the social following they want, and they're ready to give up. It's a long haul journey.
Yeah.
And as long as you're impacting and helping even one person at a time, it'll start growing. It'll start happening. Look at the long-term journey of everything you do. And when I started with my son, if I focused on day to day, there's no way we would have achieved our stuff. Like I said, it was some of the things we did, even for him to put his finger through plasticine his right hand, that took over 4 months to push all the way through. If I give up from day one, it was, okay, you didn't do it, let's go day 2. Let's go day 3. We had calendars, day 4, day 5. And it was just this process. And I understood the process. And I had your word, I had the passion, because I'd had this love and understanding that this was my calling. I needed to get this done. And I think as long as entrepreneurs have that understanding that this is a long haul, everything is a long game, and enjoy the process, man. Enjoy the process along the way. Don't stress out about it. And any advice I would give too when it comes to business is love what you're doing, but don't always fall in love with everything you do. Because allow the customers and allow the industry to tell you where to go. Because a lot of times you'll have this great idea, but the industry and the customers are saying it's not great. So just enjoy the process, but listen to criticism, understand, and take advice along the way, because you're always learning and you're always going to grow along the way as well.
Who are the people that you can point to in your journey as an entrepreneur that helped you get to success? Because that's the third P. You got passion, you got being in the right place, right time, and you got people, knowing the right people. Who are those people for you?
There's been tons of indirect mentors. Like I'm a bookworm, so I've always loved books, and I always loved podcasts, and I've always loved studying what people do, and going back to my wall, studying patterns of people and how they became successful, how they got out there, how Arnold Schwarzenegger became this mega star. Like as a kid, I was always studying these guys, and I was like, this is incredible. How does this guy from Austria get here and become this massive star in the US? Like I'd always study these things. I don't know why. I would always study their patterns. And through the process, I only had one direct mentor growing up, and that was my grandfather, because my whole family, everybody was blue collar workers. And my grandfather in Portugal was the only entrepreneur. He was a very successful entrepreneur in Portugal. And once a week, we would just talk business. And he's no longer with us. We lost him a little over 12 years ago. But man, he was just an incredible entrepreneur, and he would give me always tons and tons and tons of advice. And I was lucky to have that, and it was always free. So it was lucky. It was lucky to have that, having to see somebody that was successful. I mean, till this day, he has a museum, he has a school named after him in Portugal. So he impacted a lot of lives, and he served and helped a lot of people along the way. And it was amazing watching that as a kid, knowing that this is what I wanted to do, and seeing him do that. And then there's so many moments, and I think as an entrepreneur, even yourself, there's so many moments that you could look back to. Mine were very young, that impacted me not wanting to have a 9-to-5 job. And I'll give you the quick little story that I have told a few people, and it's something that always clicks in my head. I was 16, working at a department store as a stock boy, part-time. I was working twice a week, and the store was called Zellers in Toronto, Canada. And it was 9 o'clock at night, the store closed, and everybody's ready to leave. And the manager looked at me, and he was just tough little guy. And he would look at me, he's like, I need you to bring these skids out. I'm like, it's 9 o'clock. I was about to punch out. He goes, no, go pull these skids out. I'm like, oh. So I run back there, and I see 2 skids, and it's for the night crew. So I pick up the pump truck, I pump it up, I start pulling out these massive skids full of bleach. And I'm trying to rush through, and I'm running through the aisles, pulling the skid to put in the middle aisle, and I do a churn, and the whole skid flips over, and it's in the department store of the women's apparel side, and it destroys all his clothes, bleach everywhere. And the guy comes running, and this big bang, and all the employees, everybody comes running, and everybody's around me, and I'm sitting there like, oh, what did I just do? And he looks at me, he's like, Jeff, and I still remember his name, Texera, and he looked at me, he goes, from day one, the day I met you, I knew from the beginning, you're the type of person who'll never accomplish nothing in your life. You'll be absolutely nothing. And these little things, these little clicks lock in your head. And I remember I never came back. I quit after that. And I remember those little things are always locking in your head. And there's been tons of those little moments that lock in your head when people doubted you. And most people will turn that into, oh my God, and they'll doubt themselves. To me, that is brought fuel. That was just like, I got to prove these people wrong. And I would use those little triggers to keep me fired all the time. And I think those are little special moments that impacted who I was as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that knowing those people, like that guy, is one of your keys to success, whether you ever would have thought about it now or later or before. Is like that guy pushed you in the right direction. He was a jerk. He was, who knows where that guy ended up. Yeah. Hopefully he ended up being successful as well. But with that type of attitude, it's not likely. I want to kind of bring our conversation around to some direct advice. Yep. So I want to kind of shortcut. If somebody's sitting in their car listening to this podcast on Spotify or wherever they're listening to it, and any of the podcast players, or watching it on YouTube, and they're thinking, all right, these are two successful entrepreneurs talking about their journey to success. Who cares? What does that mean for me? What would you say to that person who's just getting started? What are your top 1 or 2 pieces of advice for that person?
It's going to go back to one word you used, and another word I'm going to add into is, when you're creating a business, you have to have a purpose and a passion for it. Because that initial drive, that initial hustle to start a business, that dies out very quickly after month 2, month 3, month 4, that you're not succeeding, or you have a little bump in the road. So if you don't wake up every single day and have a smile on your face and love what you're doing, whether it's a job, whether it's a 9 to 5, it's okay. There is a lot of people in this world that are meant to be very successful at a career. There's no problem with that, because every entrepreneur runs a business. They're going to need great staff, great people to help run that business. But if you're not waking up every single day and you have a smile on your face and getting excited to go to work, or go to your business, or go to your office, you're in the wrong career. That's first off. And the second is, understand it's a long haul game, man. Don't think that you are going to succeed overnight. There's overnight successes, but they still have humps and bumps in the road. And the last advice I would give is study, and we talked about this, focus on people in that industry, focus on people in that product line, focus on people that have succeeded in what you wanted to achieve, whether you want to be a coach, whether you want to be whatever you want to be. Focus on people that really succeeded and study them. Really figure out their map to success, study it, and don't be shy. Most people that are successful have zero issues of you picking up the phone or you shooting them an email and say, listen, I'm starting this industry. Is there anything you could help me with? Any advice you give me? Most people are not scared to give advice. They'll be more than happy to give it. Because successful people want to see other people be successful. If you don't want to see other people successful, that means you're scared of your own success. That means you don't believe in yourself. So reach out to people, ask questions, study what they're doing, learn from their mistakes, try to fast forward your career by their mistakes. So those are the things I would add. It's like I said, don't be scared to ask for help. Study successful people. Make sure you love what you do when you wake up every single day. And at the end of the day, understand that money comes and goes. Your family has to be your priority first and foremost. Family has to be a priority. So you could have the most successful business, but you're coming home and have a horrible marriage or horrible family life. It's not going to mean nothing to you later on. So make sure you have that balance between family and business as well through the process.
Well, Jeff, that is phenomenal advice. And I think what makes it even better advice is that it's obviously coming from someone who's living that. Like it is evident that this is not just a lip service to your success. And I appreciate you being transparent about that, sharing the story of your son and your family and what you've been able to accomplish. Thank you for being a guest on the show. Is there, how would people reach out to get in touch with you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest is right through, I'm on all social platforms, but IG, Instagram, just reach out to me on Instagram. I answer all my DMs. It's Jeff Lopes, JFF-LOPS. DM me, shoot me a message, reach out to Jason if you want to get a hold of me. But I mean, it's I'm here to help, and I have never had an issue helping others. And I love helping others, and I want to see as many individuals succeed as possible. So as long as we have that, we could all kind of take that in and have the same understanding. I think this is going to be a much, much better world.
Yeah. Well, all right. So everybody, it's Jeff, Jefflopes, Jeff Lopes. He also has a podcast called Jeff Knows Inc. And I want you to go take a look at his podcast. If you're watching this on Zoom, you can see behind him, he's got this really cool graphic. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic behind him. And it's a great podcast, just very conversational with some super successful entrepreneurs. So make sure you tune in for that. So thank you, Jeff, for being on the show. It's an honor to know you and to talk to you. And I look forward to developing an ongoing relationship with you. And I think we should do some stuff together. Maybe when we can get you come down here to Nashville, or we can go do a big event somewhere and you get on stage and I get on stage and we can talk and encourage people who are listening to do great things. So thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, man. This has been a great conversation today.
Well, there you have it. You've heard from yet another super successful entrepreneur. This one, a Canadian guy who's fantastic in understanding the balance between family and success as an entrepreneur. You could hear in his story how committed he was to making sure that he balanced that life out for his son and for his daughter, and for his wife, to make sure that he didn't overstep his bounds as an entrepreneur and lose some of the opportunity to develop that relationship with his family. If you as an entrepreneur are interested in learning about how to get this mentorship that Jeff talked about on the show, this indirect mentorship, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast, The Root of All Success. Go and subscribe to his podcast, Jeff Knows Inc. And make sure that you're listening to podcasts like this, reading books, finding those indirect mentors that will help you get to the success that you want to get to as an entrepreneur. Now, I have a special offer for you. Since you're still listening, before you sign off, I got this special offer. What about some direct mentorship? I own a coaching company called Results Through Integrity, and I certify coaches and my certification process, RTI Coach. One of the things that I do, of course, is I have engagements, one-on-one coaching engagements that I do. I also do group coaching, but I want to offer you something today. I want to offer you a single hour of free one-on-one coaching with me. We'll do it by Zoom. We do it together. You've got one issue that you can present, and I will coach you through that one issue. And the reason I do this is because I truly believe that entrepreneurs are the ones who change the world. And I want to help as many entrepreneurs change the world as possible. And I understand that I can't coach everybody, and not everybody can afford to be coached by me or to be in my programs. However, I can give away one free hour of coaching every week. So that's part of what I do. Every single week of the year, I give one free hour to one entrepreneur just like you to go through one issue. So if you want to apply to get that one free hour, not everybody gets it. I can't do it for everybody, but you can go to therealjasonduncan.com/free coaching. You put in your name, put in your email, and you describe the one issue that you would like me to coach you on. It could be anything, as long as it's related to small business ownership, entrepreneurship, something to do around entrepreneurialism. You might get that opportunity. My team and I look at those applications every week, and we pick one person to get that free hour of coaching. So again, go to therealjasonduncan.com/free coaching. Next week, we'll be again together with another super successful entrepreneur and talk about his or her journey to success. I'm the real Jason Duncan. I'll see you next week. And until then, remember, Jesus is King.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we invite you to visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Take charge of your business. Grow it from great to incredible. Join us again next time here on The Root of All Success.